CityCast Portland's 503-Day Block Party is almost here. It's happening on Saturday, May 3rd in downtown Portland's Ankeny Alley and Southwest 3rd Ave. The party is starting at 1 p.m. and will have swag bags for the first 100 people filled with freebies from our amazing sponsors. And you can now enter to join the Portland Icons Costume Contest. That's where you dress up as the most iconic Portland person, place, or thing, and you get a chance at winning prizes and our collective admiration. If singing is more your thing, we'll have live band karaoke, which is open to all, but we did book some special guests. Also, we're making all of this official. City leaders are joining us at 5:03 p.m. with an official 503-Day proclamation, so you'll get to witness 503-Day becoming a totally real holiday, all while sipping on a local Oregon brew in front of the outdoor beer garden. Best of all, it's totally free. Sign up for the costume contest and find more information at our website, portland.citycast.fm. That's portland.citycast.fm. For many years, Portland's Bureau of Emergency Communications, or BOEC, has been trying to improve their 911 hold times. They handle all of Multnomah County's emergency and non-emergency calls relating to fire, police, ambulance, and now Portland Street Response. It's an extremely difficult job, and post-pandemic burnout led to the department becoming severely understaffed. So you add all that with an increase of call volumes brought on by our city's fentanyl and homelessness crisis, and it's no surprise we've been unable to consistently meet the national standard for the past 6 years. At one point, our county's 911 hold times, on average, were 4 times longer than the national standard. So today on CityCast Portland, we're talking to the director of BOEC, Bob Causey, about how things are faring now and what his department is doing to continue improving their wait times. It's Thursday, April 24th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Before we jump in, I just want to point out that the wait times on average, meaning how long it takes for a 911 call taker to just answer your call, has improved dramatically from where it was at its worst in recent years. Can you bring us up to speed to where we were and where we are now? Because I feel like a lot of Portlanders just have a lot of anecdotal evidence.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I've heard, we obviously took a lot of complaints from community members during what I consider our deepest hole when staffing was at its worst and call volume was at its peak. Over the past, since 2018, basically, that's when I started here as director. I kind of look at everything from when I started here and look at this measure. And the first year was pretty good. It was stable. But then over the course of the next few years, calls for service to 911 just skyrocketed, 20+% from one year to the next. Ultimately, by the end of 2024, we averaged a 35% increase in our 911 calls since 2018. So that's a huge number. And they're not just extra calls. They were, for the most part, legitimate 911 calls.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I know the standard is you want to hit somebody within 15 seconds.
Yeah, that's the national standard. In fact, the way it's worded, the National Emergency Number Association standard says 90% of 911 calls shall be answered in 15 seconds.
Right.
And then 95% should be answered in 20 seconds. So the real measure is the 15-second, but I really don't look at it that way. I'm not as interested in 15 or 20 seconds because, I'm part of this community. I have family in this community. And, you have to ask yourself, what's a reasonable amount of time to wait on the worst day of your life when you're calling for help? And I would argue that you want someone to be able to pick up the phone immediately.
Yeah.
And that's really what I'm trying to get.
Right. So I know at the worst, the average wait time to answer was about 84 seconds, but people anecdotally were reporting, because of course this is the average, we're reporting sometimes up to 5-10 minute waits, which is at the worst point of your life, 5 to 10 minutes, that's an eternity. So I'm curious, what's at stake for people who have to wait longer than 15 seconds? What are the consequences? I mean, aside from someone's having a heart attack and, they don't make it in time, but what are the discussions your team is having?
With any long wait time, I mean, we're talking life and death. This is not a career field that should be taken lightly. And when you're looking at, long wait times, our community is definitely impacted by it. And, a couple of years ago, folks really were anecdotally waiting much longer than that 84 seconds. During the wintertime, it tends to be quicker because we have fewer calls. During the summertime, it tends to be longer because with nicer weather, a lot more people are out and about.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at, even a 1 minute or 2 minute wait time, that's completely unacceptable.
Right. And we are, again, talking about someone picking up the phone because I feel like prime time has really warped our understanding of what a call taker is and what a dispatcher is. Could you just briefly explain like the difference between, who you're talking to on the phone and what a 911 dispatcher is?
Yeah, so we do tend to use the term interchangeably here because we cross-train all of our employees after the training academy. They start out as call taker trainees and they learn to answer 911 and non-emergency lines. They're sitting with a coach for that entire time. And by the end of, we'll say roughly 6 months of training, then we have a certified call taker.
Mm-hmm.
Next, they go into police dispatch training. And again, it all starts over again. Part of the time they're working as a certified call taker, but part of the time they're working as a trainee in police dispatch. And by the time they're finished with police dispatch training, they are a certified police dispatcher and a certified call taker. But training doesn't end there because they go back into training and learn what we call resource dispatch, but that is fire dispatch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also Portland Street Response dispatch.
Right. So is one person doing all that, or normally is the call taker taking the call and then a dispatcher takes over?
Yeah, exactly. We're pretty busy here, and our staff move around from position to position every 2 hours.
Gotcha.
So they might be a call taker for a couple hours, and then they might move to police dispatch.
Interesting. Is the dispatcher on the line with a call taker also assessing, or is this something that the call taker then relays to the dispatcher?
Yeah, it's all relayed through our computer-aided dispatch system. So the call taker is asking all of the pertinent questions and setting up the call for service in the computer. And when they hit send, it goes to a dispatcher, and that dispatcher then will dispatch the resources, even while the call taker is still on the phone with the caller.
Oh, interesting. Why that separation of process? One would think like, well, the call taker is setting it up. Why aren't they also dispatching?
Some smaller agencies will do it that way. Normally it's a staffing, but we take in so many calls at any given time. If you had a dispatcher set aside for every single call that comes in, we wouldn't have enough dispatchers. So basically, there is a dedicated police dispatcher assigned to a precinct or an area.
Oh, gotcha.
Within the city or the county. And all of those calls, as the call takers are taking them, they begin to stack up in the dispatcher's queue. And the dispatcher looks for the resources, and they begin dispatching all of the resources.
I see what you're saying. So what I'm hearing is if there were no dispatcher and everybody was just dispatching, someone needs to basically make sure that the resources are there.
Exactly. It's all about resource management.
Right.
For the dispatcher, and the call taker really just brings in call after call after call.
It's almost like triaging.
It is.
Gotcha. Well, so let's talk about why things got so bad. I know the pandemic was a big catalyst, but it was also reported by actually one of our team members, Rachel Monahan, when she was covering City Hall for Willamette Week a handful of years ago, that before you took over Portland's Bureau of Emergency Communication, or BOEC, in 2018, as you said, there were issues at the department related to management. There was actually an audit that showed 911 hold times were not being reported accurately, so it was hard to, if you don't have data, then you can't get better.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me how it's been taking control of that situation and working towards shorter wait times.
Yeah, I came in really right at the tail end of that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really speak for the administration prior to me being here, but I do know what I was faced with early on, and that was making sure that we had accurate data. So using a dedicated data analyst and being able to really look into the data to make sure it's accurate, I think has been one of the biggest changes. My understanding is that the call answering times, BC, I joke and say before Kazi, was basically 1 second to answer non-emergency calls. Well, that's because of some technology that was in place. And when a call taker heard the caller in their ear, you could argue that was 1 second, but it wasn't measuring the time that the caller was in the queue waiting to be transferred to that call taker.
Interesting. So you basically what you're saying is when you took over, then these wait times increased, but it's because at the time it wasn't being measured correctly.
Yeah, it wasn't really honest reporting of data because, obviously we were not answering the phone in 1 second.
Right. Well, I know BOIC also handles Portland Street Response calls through 911. Mm-hmm. Has this also added an additional challenge, or how has this worked in, with attempting to get your wait times even shorter?
Portland Street Response is another responder. As far as, increased workload, I don't know if I would say it's been a huge increase because these are calls we would have taken anyway. We would have just sent police to them. Mm-hmm. So we get the number of calls that we get. And now we have a new resource that we can dispatch to help in that particular situation.
You haven't seen like an extra amount of calls come through because they're like, oh, great, now I feel better about calling someone about this.
I wouldn't say there's extra. I think people are more comfortable perhaps calling knowing that Portland Street Response could be a responder rather than police in some cases.
Gotcha. All right, well, let's take a quick break here. When we come back, what BOIC is doing to shorten their hold times. If you're a home DIYer like me, you might have a few leftover paint cans gathering dust in your basement. Or maybe your house already came with a bunch of them like mine did. So I'm happy to share that Paint Care makes recycling your leftover paint, stain, and varnish simple and easy with convenient drop-off locations as close as your local hardware store. Paint Care has 3 simple rules for painting smarter. 1, buy the right amount of paint for the job. 2, use up leftover paint. And 3, recycle the rest. If you visit paintcare.org/3 simple rules, you'll find tips on how to do all 3. Buying the right amount of paint for your project, exploring DIY ideas for how to use up leftover paint, and also just look up the nearest drop-off site in your neighborhood. Paint Care is all about keeping it simple for Oregonians.
So here's a tip. The number one thing that your mom probably wants is a phone call from you. So this Mother's Day, you can give her a phone call, of course, and give her an Aura digital picture frame. So my mom lives across the country, and a big way that we keep in touch is through sharing photographs. I'm constantly sending her photos of activities that I'm doing, like my team at the Lads 500 bike relay the other week. Yeah, she got those photos. Aura Frames was named the best digital photo frame by Wirecutter, so you can use one to keep in touch with your mom too, right from your phone. Aura has a great deal going for Mother's Day. For a limited time, CityCast listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver mat frame. That's auraframes.com. Promo code CityCast. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
What sort of promises have you made to yourself this year? Getting in better shape, eating healthier, saving more money, traveling somewhere new? What about discovering a new culture by learning a new language? With Babbel, you can do that in just a few weeks. I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast, and I've been learning Spanish with Babbel. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in new languages, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. The Spanish I learned on Babbel really helped me on a recent trip to Mexico City, ordering in restaurants, shopping at the textile market, cheering on at the Lucha Libre, and I've been keeping it up since I got home. You're a podcast listener. I know that because you're listening here. I bet you'll love Babbel's new podcasts. On Eavesdrop in Espanol, which I listen to, you get to listen to a real conversation, then have the teacher host explain back to you. Then you listen again and catch everything. And you can even read along in the transcript. It's a really fun and effective way to learn. Let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting CityCast listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Let's talk about what specific strategies BOIC has adapted to make improvements. I mean, I know a lot of it was staffing related. Could you walk us through?
Yeah. So, February of 2023, we were at the bottom. We had 40 vacancies.
Wow.
And it was during that time that obviously calls were waiting. The community was frustrated. Everyone was frustrated. My staff was just feeling terribly, terribly burned out and really feeling like there was no way out. We started entertaining a lot of media requests, and I was interviewed a lot. And, our philosophy was we're going to answer the questions honestly. We're going to explain what's happening and just get the word out. And the media became really our partners in many aspects because they were reporting, yes, it's bad. We're aware of it and we're doing something about it. And part of doing something about it, of course, was beefing up our recruitment efforts. And through the media coverage that we were getting, our recruitments quadrupled in numbers.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So we had, rather than 100 people in a recruitment, we would easily get over 400 applicants for dispatch positions. We also doubled the number of training academies that we had.
Oh, gotcha.
So we used to hire twice a year. We increased that to 4 times a year, which is basically training pretty much all the time in the training academy. We haven't slowed down. We are looking this year because we finally have staffing that is respectable. On March 1st, we had only 4 vacancies. And we had, at the time, 15 or 16 people that were still in the pipeline. Our staffing is much better, which explains why our call answering times have improved.
Well, I know, as you were saying, there's a lot of burnout. The pandemic for sure burned out a lot of people for healthcare. Is that something that would also ring true for 911 call takers and dispatchers? Or is that something that this vacancy was always building, in the department, and then the pandemic happened and then everything just got even worse,
Before the pandemic, and I believe this would be very common in public sector work, particularly leading a government agency. And it's the realization that you have so many positions that you have funding for. And if you can get those positions filled, that's the finish line. What the pandemic taught me and what the protests and riots and resulting, burnout for my staff, what that taught me was that our finish line can't be filling positions. We have to look beyond it. Kind of like running a race. If you're a runner, you don't slow down as you're getting closer to the finish line. You run as fast as you can through the finish line, and then you slow down. And that's the mindset that I have here, in that I want to be able to go beyond what we have funded for staffing, which is 138 right now, which we are able to do. Then we can really figure out what that magic number is to be able to meet that national standard.
Right.
So, City Council a few years ago, when we were really in the hole, made some really good policy decisions. They, along with our user board, they all agreed that our vacancy savings didn't have to go back to the general fund. Go ahead and keep it and use it as a training pipeline so you can overhire.
Yeah.
And that's really the mindset that we have now, so that we can stay ahead of anticipated attrition and never, ever be in the hole that we were in just a few years ago.
It's a good strategy. Do you think City Hall's current budget crisis is going to have an impact on that? Or do you have a backup plan? Because that's the fear, is that everyone's budgets are going to get slashed.
Sure. Yeah. I am concerned if there are budget cuts. The first round, Michael Jordan, the city administrator's budget, didn't have any cuts for public safety. I know the mayor is expected to have his budget ready by May 5th.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if there will be cuts recommended for public safety or particularly for the Bureau of Emergency Communications. But if that does happen, we are looking ahead to figure out how we can mitigate the impact as much as possible. If I had a crystal ball, I would think we're probably not going to get cuts, but I don't know that for sure.
Right. Another thing that I think complicates the hiring is just how long it takes, because it takes something between 18 months to 2 years to train a call taker to be certified.
Yeah.
If I'm understanding that correctly, that means it takes longer to train a 911 call taker than it takes to train a patrol officer. I mean, you started your career as a 911 call taker in Colorado. Why is that training so intense?
A police officer learns how to patrol. They learn the law, and they really learn one aspect of public safety.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with a firefighter. And I'm not minimizing it because I have firefighting experience from when I was in the Air Force. Public safety telecommunicators or 911 dispatchers, they have to learn everything. They have to learn the nuances of police, fire, medical, as well as now Portland Street Response in our case, so that we have an understanding of what the community's needs are and who to send for help. Some agencies, it doesn't take as long. We're pretty complicated here at BOEC because we don't only dispatch for Portland Police and Fire. We dispatch for the whole county, the Sheriff's Office, Gresham Police, Gresham Fire, even Corbett Fire and Sauvie Island Fire. So all of these agencies that we provide services for, there are some nuances with each of them that our call takers and dispatchers have to learn.
Yeah. I mean, it's an incredibly difficult job from what I can imagine. You've done the job yourself. Has that at all affected how you've been managing? I mean, I imagine it has, but have you brought something that you're just it used to be this way, but because I had this job, I knew it had to be this way?
Yeah, if anything, I recognize the frustrations I think that call takers may feel, dispatchers may feel. Sometimes they're faced with some really difficult emotional calls for service.
Mm-hmm.
And recognizing that they need a break, they need some time away from the headset to be able to decompress, to be able to really take care of their own wellness. That was something that really didn't exist when I was a call taker.
Wow.
1995, it was, you just kind of plowed through and you kept going. Thankfully, we do have enough call takers that if somebody does need to step away for a moment to collect their thoughts, they're given that opportunity. In fact, if someone is really traumatized by a call, they can actually take the rest of that shift off if necessary, so that they can get the emotional support that they need. A lot of people in this profession really tend to burn out more if they're not given that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. That's so necessary. When you were talking about call takers and dispatchers, they trade off. I wondered if that was a reason for it too,
Mm-hmm.
Because it appears that a call taker would be so emotional since you're guiding someone through their traumatic experience. It's good to hear because I do worry about call takers specifically.
Yeah, a police officer goes to their call for service and then they have to write a report. And then they go to another call for service and then write a report. They do get that decompression time.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with a firefighter. Unless things are really crazy for police or fire and they're having to go to back-to-back calls constantly, that's not as common. But for call takers, you never know what you're going to get. You may be taking a police emergency 1 minute, hang up, finish the call, and then dive right into a CPR call. get that one wrapped up, and now you're giving childbirth instructions to somebody else. And then you're back to a police emergency. So it really is very interesting. I know our staff really enjoys that, the not really knowing what you're going to get, but it really can weigh on you. And that's something I think that we do a much better job now in recognizing the emotional impact on our staff than back in 95 when I started.
Yeah. Well, Bob, I really appreciate you taking the time and giving us a lay of the land of what's going on. It's great to hear that times are improving. Do you happen to have like the most up-to-date time of what the average is at this point?
Yeah, our year-to-date average this year is about 24 seconds.
That's great.
It's not perfect. It's not where we want to be, but it is absolutely so much better than it was.
Yeah. Last question. I don't know if you've heard of the very real holiday that is 503 Day. So 503 Day, which is, by the way, May 3rd, it's the day that we've decided Portland celebrates itself. And the city agrees. And so there's going to be a proclamation this May 3rd, and we're throwing a big block party in celebration. And of course, you're invited. Everyone at BOIC is invited. But I had a question for you. I mean, I don't know how long you've lived in the Portland metro area, but I'm curious, like, what you think Portland has to celebrate.
Well, Portland is, in my opinion, is coming back. And I think we have a lot to celebrate. I think we have a lot to recover from. And I like to say that 911 is a barometer for the condition of a community. What we went through, and even in some sense continue to go through, is really challenging and difficult. But the numbers don't lie, and we are trending down in 911 calls this year. It looks like so far we're about 4 to 5% fewer calls than we had at the same time last year. So that's promising. I look at this, I'm a data geek, and I look at data all the time, and I try to get the trend and the lay of the land. And because of that, that tells me if there's fewer calls, that means something is helping. Something is working. Things are beginning to improve. And what I'm noticing is that there does seem to be a freer sense of folks out and about. There's people smiling. There's people demonstrating care and concern about each other. It's slowly beginning to feel like the Portland that I remember. We moved here in 2003. So this has been my and my family's home for a very long time.
Well, thanks again, and good luck to you and your entire department. I mean, we're all rooting for you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
And now for some events happening this week. Every Thursday on the show, we like to bring you a few recommendations to help you plan your weekend, and here's what we got. If you remember our episode about outdoor grilling, this Friday, you can catch my sous vide hating guest, Zeph Shepard, on the grill making what has been called the best burger in town, and he only makes them once a month. You can go buy one from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Proletariat Butchery, located in the Crescent-Kenilworth Foster Powell neighborhood. Tell him I sent you and that lamb still sucks. Also this weekend, the Sci-Fi Film Festival at OMSI continues. It's jam-packed with films like Gattaca, The Terminator, Arrival, Men in Black, and so much more. Go check out the schedule. They have something for everyone, and watching anything at OMSI is insane because they quite literally have the biggest screen in Portland, and it just feels like you're falling into the movie. It's amazing. And if you're looking for something to do with the kids, this Sunday is free day at the World Forestry Center's Discovery Museum from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And all that's just scratching the surface. There's so much more happening this weekend. For even more local news and events, you can sign up for our daily newsletter, Hey Portland, or hit up our website, portland.citycast.fm. We'll throw a link in the show notes. Well, that's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.